Once again, the question really is about your opinion as well. And here, what we want to ask you is kind of, manichaeist question. We know that, of course, the answer depends is not there, a bit on purpose, so to explore your instincts on this. And basically, what we ask, and we ask that in all the other sessions as well, is AI an opportunity or a threat to information? So to the ecosystem of information, to the environment. Feel free to vote. You know how to do that. It's directly on Menti. And what we try to have here, of course, is your opinion. What we will also try to do is compare with the other sessions, because of course, when it comes to health, when it comes to other fields, there might be contrasts. But right now, as we can see, there is quite a consensus on what the audience thinks. So seeing the potential more than the danger.
Yes, only everybody. No, at least one. Thank you.
But maybe, yeah. And so today it will really be about this subject of information environments, and of course also misinformation. And with that, I would give the floor to you, the moderator, Emmanuel Brunner.
Okay, thank you very much, Pierre-Adrien. Thank you, everybody. So let me share my screen. Okay. I can't share my screen, Pierre-Adrien. Sorry. I was disabled, so I can't share my screen. Anyway, I will start without slides, and then hopefully I will be able later on to pull them up. Meanwhile, if you can try, Pierre-Adrien, to share them, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So thank you everybody for joining us to this AI for Information session. As we can see, we are in the era of information with a big bang and the explosion of data volumes. So it is estimated that the volume of data will be multiplied by 45 by 2035. And at the same time, what we notice is that there is a growth in the speed rate at which the fake news and the news are spreading. And what is really striking is that actually the spread of the fake is higher than the spread of the truth. So especially on social media. For instance, on Twitter, what is worth pointing out is that reach of fake news is 10 times higher than the reach of a truth message. So, and this puts really a threat in the heart of democracy, because if we take a quick look at how the US market is structured, we see that more than 50% of US readers report each day that they read fake news at least once on their social medias. Whereas on the top 100 fake news on Facebook in 2019 were viewed over 150 million times. And it's enough to reach every single US voters. So it means that really we can see the true connection and the true stake that is happening. Later on, if we still move on, so I continue, we see that the era of, in this era, AI offers an augmented information from both sides of the spectrum. So first from multiplying the deepfakes, jeopardizing democracy, to the bright side of the spectrum by detecting fake news and curating content. So let me just put one or two examples. A recent one back from July, it's really becoming harder to recognize fake news that we can imagine. So for instance, there is a group of researchers that decided to create a deepfake video that convincingly shows that the President Nixon was reading a speech about how Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin failed to make it back from the moon. And what is worth pointing out, and thank you for the slides actually, Pierre-Adrien, is that it's so convincingly that basically some people were start thinking that there was a complot back again about the US managing to go on the moon. On the bright side of the spectrum, it's both from, I would say, a large tech companies such as Microsoft that just released a new AI framework that improves the way of detecting fake news, to really innovative startups such as TruePic that is able that is using blockchain to verify photo and check video content. And if we move on to the next slide, please, what we see is that information accuracy becomes the new gold in our in today's world, and it's the goal to achieve a sustainable economic growth and development. And what is worth pointing out is that it has a cost. It has an economic monetary cost. It was estimated that the potential loss is up to 0.1% of stock market because of the impact of fake news based on previous events. So roughly $40 billion. And on the other side, it also has some particular striking costs. For instance, in the health sector, the spreading of articles from low credibility sources jeopardize national public health. In the UK, for instance, recently the head of NHS said that the fake news had tripled the number of measles cases. So what we can see, if we can move on, please, is that now we see that the connection is really at stake between AI and the for information and the achievement of sustainable economic growth and development. And AI can support this by first detecting fake news from both the political stakes, helping readers or each citizen to sort out what is true from what is not true, helping sustainable development to avoid losing any stock market losses, predicting elections turnout, analyzing social media trends, curating information on climate change, for instance, but on various number of topics that are at the cornerstones of sustainable development, and also detecting radicalizations and hate speeches online. And some governments have already started to put, I would say, information at the cornerstone of their AI strategy. If we can move on, please. So just a few examples that are striking. For instance, earlier this year in 2020, so in the US, the DARPA launched a new program that is aimed at developing AI technology to automatically assess the integrity of an image or a video and to detect the manipulations and provide information about these manipulations. So it will help all the investigations at crime level. Another example, for instance, and another type of example is that in Italy, the government set up huge promotional campaigns to raise awareness on fake news and cybersecurity. So it's not about just working on the models, it's also working on the communications towards the population. Last example, it's at the European level. The European Parliament Research Services presented policy options for regulating AI in disinformation. So as we can see, there are some initiatives to promote information accuracy and fight against fake news. And I will leave the floor now to our panel, first with Gianfranco Ceccioni on that will explain a very interesting project on European data portal. Jean-Mathieu Tilquin from Bloom for the analysis of social media and how we can use intelligent machine learning to detect insights on this channel and prevent fake news. And Albert Prichot from the Fraunhofer Institutes. The floor is yours, Gianfranco.
Thank you, Manuel. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Gianfranco Cecconi, but you're forgiven, Emmanuel, don't worry, it's a complicated one. I'm a director in Capgemini Invent, based in the Netherlands, and I sit in a very privileged place where, with a background as a technologist, today I actually work in policy and technology, and all of my time is dedicated to the European Union. And even more lucky for being part of a movement within Invent, Capgemini Invent, that we call Invent for Society, for injecting more positive social impact in the work we do for our clients. All of this takes me naturally to the two projects I will tell you about today that gives Capgemini the possibility to do great also for Europe specifically, and in this space of information. To start, I would like to give you 1 minute to read this. That is very powerful to me. So the only way we can build consensus, the only way we can move forward, the only way we can help the world mend itself is by agreeing on a baseline of facts when it comes to the challenges that confront us all. So we are very, very quick at expecting AI to deliver amazing results for humanity, but we forget sometimes that AI takes decision and builds and computes on top of information and facts. And we should not forget that we need to give that kind of good fuel into the machine if we want to get results that are relevant on the other side. We were talking earlier about the race to AI, but there's not much to race if you don't have fuel, right? I like to see the space in which we are moving at the service of AI and algorithm, and as this kind of spectrum you see on screen now, from left to right, from the more factual information to the more, let's say, arbitrary or biased one. We move almost seamlessly sometimes, and sometimes dangerously seamlessly, from fact to measurement to data, information, news, and opinion. Measurement perhaps is the closest we get to fact, when we actually capture the way data presents to us, a phenomenon presents to us. Data is what we collect, and already there is some degree of work from humans which makes it to some degree already biased or collected for a certain purpose. Information is a big word. I put a dinosaur there to represent the scientific method, the kind of probable interpretation that is as cold, as factual as possible, that we have today in our toolbox. And then we get intentionally into news, where we start getting into opinion and intentional bias, or some kind of, say, political orientation and so on. All of this is incredibly valuable. Each of these have the key value contributed to the whole conversation, but each of these have potential quality problems. And each of these feeds into this kind of magical coffee grinder that are AI and algorithms. You can easily imagine, you don't need to be a techie, that if we feed bad coffee beans there, the coffee will not be great. And as an Italian, I can make jokes about coffee. So Europe is sensitive to this topic, and we heard before from the Commission and Mikey, and it's not just about the AI side, but we also need to prevent the quality of information to be damaged. And there was a lot of work in this space since back in 2003, where the Commission started pushing its member states to open, let's say, the gate to government-owned data that is non-sensitive, so does not compromise anybody's privacy, but at the same time can enable anything from accountability in government to enable you to start a startup, to understand better your business, or do scientific research. And all of this information, as close as possible to the fact described by government, needs to be preserved and published and made available so that those algorithms can be built. Two projects were started, all of those as the result of a long legislative process. In the EU, there are actually 3 different directives that drive the publication of open data from government, and strategy, like the document you see there, published only a few months ago, that push in that direction. The 2 projects are the European Data Portal and the Support Center for Data Sharing. So the first one is the one that has more history. Perhaps it's been around, the project has been around for 6 years, and I have had the privilege to lead it for the last 2. It looks like a website. In reality, there is a lot more to that. We work with the member states to offer citizens a one-stop shop to discover and access the country's and the European Union's own data. That is a lot, as you can imagine. We are beyond 1 million data sets, assuming that number is that relevant, but you got the point. There is so much data in the drawers of civil servants that over the years has been let out. And we help them. We provide support to the civil servants to publish more and better data, whether it is a technology matter or process matter or understanding of the legal implication of it. And we develop original research to understand and document the value of their data. It's quite difficult to persuade a government to publish data if they don't see a return on the other side, even just good for society. We're not talking necessarily about financial development, but there's that as well. And finally, we need to involve the public. We need citizens to know that this resource is available, in most cases, completely for free to just take and use. And I dropped a few of those development goals because it's so easy, if you think about it, to see data enabling any of those and AIs developed across all of this space, not just, of course, information. The decisions we take are built on this information, whatever field, whatever area you're thinking of, whether it is education, economic growth, industry, and so on. This summer in particular, of course, we had to do something for COVID. And a lot of data rushed out from the health departments of government. But on top of that, we want in a way to give a message of positive actionability from that. We did not want just to put the data out. We used the opportunity to talk a lot about how data enables your decision, how you can already think in terms of rebuilding or develop the new normal, let's say. Unfortunately, we are still inside that, but we like the idea that we're supporting the recovery from that. Now, government data is a lot, but it's not sufficient. And the ecosystem is complex, and particularly more lately includes almost seamlessly data that originates in organizations, companies, and other kinds of associations that is not in any way less important or less enabling to AIs. The Commission asked us to run a second project as well about 2 years ago that is called Support Center for Data Sharing. This extends the scope of the original to non-governmental organization. Of course, in this case, we cannot help them open their drawers. It's up to the companies to do it, but we can help them do it in a way that is technically sound, legal, possibly ethical, and let's say in line with what is made possible by the legal framework today. So we need to demystify this kind of concept that data sharing is always dangerous. Of course, I need to be an optimist in this job, and I hope you will be with me with this. And the best practices are new. So we may make more mistakes in this space, but this does not mean we can simply stop and watch. There is so much potential there to be exploited. And again, we are personally, in a way, I feel personally responsible to enable those good AIs to come. And I hope I haven't run too much, but this is how I'd like to close. In Europe, we like to think that it's not just about technology development and developing the economy, but also a matter of conjugating that nicely with our values. And it's captured well in this sentence by Macron. I invite all of you to feel responsible for that good data to come out and enable your applications. Back to you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much, Gianfranco. It was really inspiring and very interesting. So we have seen that the first part of the spectrum about the identification of data, and we will move to the social media part with Jean-Mathieu Tilquin, that I welcome to this session. I will leave your floor to you, Jean-Mathieu. Let me know if you can share your screen or not. Otherwise, I will do it for you. Oh, no, it's fine. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. I will probably have you assist me in moving through the slides if you're happy with that. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this session and from being there. Today, what I wanted to describe is how a startup specialized on listening to the social media networks and powered by some nice AI functions can help fight fake news around the world, which is a huge task, but at least how we can use the technology to fight fake news and what does it mean in terms of how the democracies can still work and in terms of benefits for the populations. So next slide. So as an introduction, a few numbers. I think you all realize that today social networks are getting bigger and bigger, and they concentrate a significant part of the world population. So this year, it's estimated that 3.7 billion people will be on social networks. And it means a massive volume of exchanges in these networks. Amongst these exchanges, we also see an increasing number of fake news arising. And a study from last year showed that only on Twitter, which is I would say, only 300,000 social network. Last year, we've seen almost between 45 and 50 million fake news that have been relayed or commented on this network. So basically, what we are saying here is that the level of information is increasing on the social networks. The level of fake news will increase accordingly. So now the stake is really to identify from this mass of information where the fake news lies and how we can fight them. So moving next slide. So the other aspect that we see is that fake news sources are now multiple. It's not limited to one group of individuals, but it goes from media, individuals, communities, public figures, political opposition. And they can be a source of or a relay of fake news, either on purpose or because they relay an information that they think is true and that they think is worth commenting or relaying to their community. Next one. What is the use of fake news? It's really to manipulate opinion, to change the image in a positive or negative manner, or to give credence to movements or individuals that should not be given this credence. So really, fake news are primarily being used to manipulate the perception of individuals on social networks, but also on all type of media, as we can see on next slide. So how do they spread? We really have a few different, three different categories of how they spread. The first one is really the social through the individuals, through the day-to-day life, when you meet people, when you talk to people. That's proximity spreading, and it's quite slow in terms of kinetics or dynamics, in terms of having a fake news move within a community. Second one, social networks, but in the private side of the social networks, I'm thinking about all the private groups, messaging that are being used to share, exchange, create fake news and trying to spread them. But the most important one and the most dangerous one is the viral dissemination that we can see on social networks publicly, and the public exchanges of social network being the information accessible to everyone. And you reach A fake news, if it can spread like a virus, basically on social networks and public social network, can reach a global audience in a very fast spread, in a very fast pace. And the goal, the stake is really to be able to detect these fake news before they spread globally. It's easier to extinguish a small bushfire rather than a large forest fire as the one we've seen in Australia or Brazil, to give you a self-explanatory example here. Next one. When it comes to politics, there is something quite interesting. There is a very low degree of confidence in the public opinion, because when you ask people if they think there are fake news in politics, they think that government does not broadcast only fake news. So some minority of people, but still almost half of the people still think that governments can broadcast fake news in the different countries. So low level of confidence. And the second figure that is quite surprising is when it comes to an opposition party, so a party that you consider not in line with what you think, people tend to think that 75% of the opposition parties spread fake news around, do spread fake news and do broadcast fake news. There's an interesting figure to illustrate that. There is a recent report from the University of Baltimore showing that in terms of spent in the last electoral campaign in the US, so out of $10 billion that were spent for the US campaign, $200 million were spent on fake news to manipulate opinion. That's at least what has been measured by the University of Baltimore, and that's probably the emerged tip of the iceberg. So that's 2% of the electoral campaign spent on fake news. So that's a quite worrying kind of figure. Next slide. So I said it, I mentioned it earlier quickly as an introduction. So Bloom, we are a startup company specialized in listening to public conversation on social networks, and our AI is used for, let's say, to help not only our commercial customers that want to understand their market dynamics, but we also found a good application to fight fake news, and we're working with some institution and government around the globe. So next slide. Our technology is based on two innovative pillars. First one is the semantic inference. So that it's the ability of our AI algorithm to understand the link between the different topics that are being discussed around a central subject. And basically, by understanding the links between the conversation and how the topics are linked together, thanks to the semantic inference, we have the ability to discover and unveil subjects that are linked to a primary topic without knowing in advance what will be the topics connected to our primary subject of study. Second innovation pillar is the social inference. That is the ability of our algorithm to have a cartography or a mapping of the communities forming around the topics that are being discussed and understand the links and the connections between the influencers and the actors that have a real influence in these communities. So when you understand the topics that are being discussed and who originates the discussions and who they are connected to, you have the technology to understand many things on social networks, but you have the ability to start understanding where the fake news lie and how to fight them. The next slide. So the goal is really to turn this social data, this huge mass of information, into smart data. How do we extract the information, the necessary information, and the most important information from this huge mass of data. Today, we are exploiting the comments that are attached to publication on social networks, because this is where 70% of the useful information is found. And it's the raw material we are exploiting. Thanks to our two innovations that I mentioned, semantic inference, social inference, we are able to discover topics beyond the keywords that are usually being used in traditional tools, and discover all the subjects in the discussions and understand how they are linked together. This gives us the ability to start capturing weak signals and provide some projection as to how the trends should move forward in the future and how to anticipate the trends. We also,
Jean-Mathieu, if
yes,
I may, being conscious about time, maybe we can move forward to the Ivory Coast example, if you...
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely. So let's move to the methodology. So basically, by combining our technology with the knowledge and the expertise of our consultant, we are able to detect the sources that are originating, the origin of fake news, the semantic field that they are using to create and broadcast fake news. And with this methodology, we are able to put together and to identify what are the news that are most likely are fake news, what is their power and virality in the social network. And when we apply that to the Ivory Coast being today in the middle of electoral process, we are able to give advice and provide our expertise to the government to identify in advance what could turn into a viral fake news and what could turn into massive riots in the streets. Just to give you a figure, in the 2010 elections, there has been 3,000 deaths in the streets of Abidjan and around Ivory Coast due to fake news that have been spread by Laurent Gbagbo as an example. So today, using this technology, applying it to electoral processes gives them the possibility to fight fake news and to before they spread widely on social network and before they turn into massive riots in the streets. And we contribute quite modestly to the good working of the institution and electoral process in these countries. So thank you very much. I've been longer than expected, but that's a very interesting topic.
Thank you very much, Jean-Mathieu. Very insightful. Moving on to the last speaker, Albert from the Fraunhofer Institute, that will talk about how they manage to detect disinformation. Leaving up to you, Albert.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide some insights into the work of our group here at the Fraunhofer Institute in Germany, one of the many Fraunhofer Institutes in Germany. Probably I can ask for remote control.
It's not working, Albert. Don't worry. Okay. I will try for you.
Okay, then yeah, we'll start with the first slide. As a research group, we conduct applied information analysis, in particular on digital platforms. And in this presentation, you might recognize some aspects of the previous ones, but I would like to drill down a little more into the practical use of the described concepts and methods already presented. Digital platforms have long since established themselves as a source of information for both organizations and also for individuals. Next slide. We all use these tools to some extent, and some of them are already fully integrated into our daily work. And we enjoy also the advantage of these digital tools and technologies. However, what also has been said, the lack of social responsibility of many of those platforms offers many incentives for various forms of abuse. And that's something we are usually not so familiar with. Disinformation, propaganda, and fake news are just a few examples. Among the actors in this corresponding information campaigns are not only individuals, but more and more also state actors with a clear agenda behind their doings. And this makes it a central challenge that we as a society have to face even across national borders. These information threats usually result from a combination of human and artificial actors we find on those platforms that work together to manipulate the content or the algorithm in a targeted manner. Given the broad context of digital platforms shaping the information, our main focus is in the detection and in the evaluation of information campaigns. I think it's the controlled and targeted dissemination of manipulated information in social media is, in our opinion, a reinforcing course for the intentions to destabilize and polarize societies. Next slide. State of the art in detection methods rely on identifying features of users, of content, and also of the context. And in their co-occurrence might indicate misinformation or disinformation. Below, I've added a reference on an overview that reflects the whole landscape of research quite well. In recent years, we have observed a rapid development of new research challenges and approaches in dealing with disinformation campaigns. Based on existing approaches, we, as our research group, developed domain-specific analysis models, taking into account all available knowledge resources like ontologies, knowledge graphs, and also the domain-specific expertise of the analyst. I want to point out that we try to implement hybrid methods based on both the data-based, the AI-based, and the knowledge-based methods, which primarily are rule-based. And we believe that that the propagation patterns behind the content and the credibility of the creators and disseminators of the news or posts that are submitted have not yet been fully investigated due to the fact that the relevant data are usually not available. Just we have no ability to connect to analyze dumps of Facebook data, for example. And we implement methods to extract various indicators for disinformation. For example, those resulting from differences in sharing patterns in order to complement our existing content-based approach. Going into content, the next slide. The massive spread of disinformation on social media allows for a content-based solution based on classification, which is presented on this slide. It usually serves as a starting point for more complex analysis, such as the analysis of propagation patterns. Here, a classifier is used to detect fake news, who learns the desired classification on the basis of two separate corpora with as many examples as possible. But the heavy lifting here is hidden in the manual creation of those two corpora, and where usually real people try to split news into one or good or bad bucket to be used then as training data for a model. Different algorithms of machine learning are then used for learning. Classical ones, just like support vector machines, for example, or up to neural networks with deep learning and embeddings. These classifiers in the end does not really recognize fake news in the sense of a fact check, but rather than identifies articles or pages that are similar to those annotated in the fake news corpus. The next slide. The learning is based on the features we get from the data we feed into the system. They are not only derived from text such as word, spelling, or punctuations, but also from metadata, just like airtime of a message, the follower structure on a platform like Twitter, or who mentions who, and the common occurrence of those critical feature value pairs then results in the classification, which shows some evidence of fake news. The next slide. Fake news are often distributed via bots, and in this slide I will just provide a brief insight on how we use some relevant metadata to be used in the context of some kind of classifier. Here we see for example, the posting frequency of two separate accounts over the course of a week on the x-axis and over the course of a day on the on the y-axis. The account on the right-hand side can easily be identified as a bot because the throughput itself is not extremely high, but it's posting content constantly throughout the course of the day. That's what we see on the right side from Sunday to Saturday. All of the time, this account is posting messages. On the left-hand side, we see some kind of normal pattern of an active social media account. Only at some points we see some kind of bot-like behavior, where the dark blue slots, some kind, for example, 150 tweets were posted within 1 hour. The next slide, please. Yeah, also the analysis of networks often provides important information that refers to botnets or users who may have intentions other than informing others. These networks can sometimes be extracted from metadata by using, for example, the sender and the receiver of messages as nodes, and the follower structure, or the reply or the at-mentioned relation as edges of the networks. Here we see an at-mentioned network derived from Twitter in this case, and at the edge of this at-mentioned networks, you can recognize some kind of synthetic structure that at least indicates some kind of automated control of distribution. In this case, by mentioning a number of popular accounts, these originating account tries to extend its own reach. That's not a real indicator of fake news, but it's some kind of bot-like behavior which we can derive from those networks. Next slide, please. And then we can also look into the temporal correlation of some account activities, and because this also might yield some additional indicators of automation. Here, the figure shows the sending behavior of two nodes, the red one and the blue one, and where the part of it, the contribution of the red one always is sent when the red one, the red contributions are always sent when another node, when the blue node has sent some contribution shortly before. So we see some kind of connection between the activities of two accounts, which might be used to interpret also the actual behavior of different nodes. The next slide, please. Yeah, in this case, we step back from looking at individual accounts rather than looking at the whole information environment for a fixed period of time. And we are currently investigating the coverage of the presidential election in the USA by various news outlets. And from the collected news, they were in a time span of a week, we collected about 40,000 news articles concerning the election. And from these news collected news, we extracted the relevant topics just by using some kind of topic modeling, just like LDA. And then for each topics, we investigated who's contributing, which news outlets are contributing to each of those topics. And we combined our analysis with a NewsGuard's approach to assess the trustworthiness of a media outlet. NewsGuard is an organization whose they provide some metrics on how to how to assess the trustworthiness of those media outlets. And we took those metrics to apply here. For example, we applied it to this bar chart where the topic just shown is it was the topic on the Russian influence on the election. There we see on the lower side the numbers of the news articles from untrustworthy news outlets, and on the top the green ones to the trustworthy sites. We recognize some topics that are fed far more by untrustworthy sources than others. For a specific topic, we then can go even a little bit further. The next slide.
Yes. Yes, if we can maybe wrap it up, Albert, as we are already running out of time. I leave you the floor.
And that's only 1 minute. Here we only see the who is really contributing to one of those buckets of untrustworthy or of trustworthy or untrustworthy sources from untrustworthy sources. Yeah, in this presentation, I've just presented a tool with which we can, under limited conditions, detect disinformation campaigns. And I've limited myself to explaining the technical functionality of various methods. As shown, we rely on those hybrid approaches, always keeping the analyst in the loop, but also using artificial intelligence. Finally, I just want to point out that some of the features or restrictions of our approach, and that's the major limitation of that approach, is that we don't really do a fact check in any form. It's just it's not checked whether news items are true or false. We only on the basis of linguistic properties such as word choice or occurrences of specific errors, as well as metadata, it's only estimated whether it could be part of a disinformation campaign. The tool therefore searches for indications which, if present in large numbers, lead to warnings about possible or harmful effects. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for it.
Thank you very much, Albert. I know that we are already running really late. I noticed maybe 2 questions on the chat that we can answer, and then we will close the session. The first one is about I think it's for Gianfranco and Jean-Mathieu, so we'll see who's first is going to take the ball. How would you get internet companies such as Facebook to share some data sets which would augment the use of data when combined with data sets on open data platforms? It's within the chat if you want to read it.
Okay, I'll respond quickly, because I'm ready. I would say from our perspective, it's mostly about incentivization and governance. So we need both. On one side, we need to create a sort of a return on investment, a rationale for them to share. That could be whether financial or based on other kind of more ephemeral kind of return, like good of society. And a lot of this sharing is done already, by the way, by Facebook. And of course, on the other side, we need governance. So we need to be very careful that the privacy of people is ensured, not only because we are in Europe and we are the more difficult one, but because we want to be ethical, first of all, and not just legal. Jean-Mathieu, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Gianfranco. Actually, as you mentioned, Facebook, Instagram do already share some data that are publicly available to their partners. So this is what we are doing. I mean, this is the data source that we are doing. And we're relying on this public data that's accessible to their partner. From the Twitter side, I would say that's easier. That's a commercial relationship. You can buy the data from Twitter at a certain cost. I'm not sure, and because we are quite small, and I think it would be different for institutions, that Facebook would share with us more data than they give access to the other parties publicly, knowing that this data is really what they value is really their asset. That's the data they use to know the users that are connected to the platform, to anticipate their behavior, and therefore to sell advertising space to private companies. So I think there is a limited portion of data that is being shared by these platforms. It may be that we have some more restrictions if Facebook experienced another scandal, because they will protect themselves by restricting the access to the data. But that's today the material that we use.
And in fact, Facebook, by the way, only shares data with scientific researchers and only after probing the objectives. And again, a little self-promotion. If you go to Support Center for Data Sharing, we have a video interview with the Harvard professor who actually made it happen after 2 years of lobbying with Zuckerberg. So that would be interesting for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for all participating to this session. I hope you enjoy it and you discovered interesting insights on AI for information. Thank you again to the speakers. Thank you for the participants, and hope to see you again.
Thank you for the organization.
Thank you very much.